topic is a little bit spy related, so I decided to go with Secret Agent Man. Who,
That's a good one.
For most of us here, we're going to remember that, and we may not. But here we go. Hopefully, the lyrics are. Yeah, the lyrics are on the back of your sheet this morning. There's a man who leads a life of danger. To everyone he meets, he stays a stranger. With every move he makes, another chance he takes. Odds are he won't live to see tomorrow. Secret agent man, secret agent man. Giving you a number and taking away your pain. Well, a pretty face is natural fire. A pretty face can hide an evil mind. You can't know what you say, or you give yourself away. Odds are you won't live to see tomorrow. Secret agent man, secret agent man, giving you a number and taking away your dreams. Going on the road together one day. Laying in the Bombay alley next day. You left the wrong words there, while kissing was wasted lips. Odds are you won't live to see tomorrow. Secret agent man, secret agent man. You was armor and taken away your name. Nicely done. The flashback.
I told Joel that a lot of times the songs he picks get stuck in my head all day. I'm sure that one will be firmly implanted in my head. So thank you, Joel. And now we will welcome our Sergeant at Arms for today, Mr. Howard Cohen. Howard.
Good morning. So we're going to start with guests. So who would like to introduce our guests? Sherry?
I have Denise Frisino.
Frisino.
That's okay.
No.
That's okay. I butcher everyone. And Joel introduce her when she takes the podium.
And visiting Rotarians? No? Yes? All right. Happy Bucks. Who is happy?
Sure. I've got 5 happy bucks. Last week I had a meeting with one of my clients to review investment for performance and their estate plan and charitable giving, and he's always asked about Rotary and what we do. And he instructed me to process a $10,000 gift to this club.
Wow.
How much you be putting in there, brother?
Up to 10,000. $5.
There you go. All right, it's 10,005.
Hard to follow that one. It's another Rotary story. So I have a good friend who's she's 6 years old. Her husband is 90, and she's worked at a credit. She's been an executive at a credit union for a very, very long time. And they got a new CEO, and he let her go. And I know it was very sad. And she's been struggling. You know, her husband's not active like he used to be, and she's sort of lonely. And we were at lunch a few months ago, and I said, you should join Rotary. And she lives in Kent, and so I got her the information for the Kent Rotary. And 2 days ago, she sent me an email, and she said, I just want to thank you. That was a godsend. She's like, I've done so many projects with them, and I'm, it's someplace for me to go every week where I can have social interaction, and thank you. So.
More happy bucks. Carol.
Okay, I have a happy buck for something that I kind of mentioned to a couple of you that I'd been bogged down with the colds. That colds aren't like what they used to be. You used to get them for 3 days and then you went back to school. And but this one was weeks, and then it developed into bronchitis.
Oh, no.
And without any breaks, I got an eye infection. And I'm just about turning the corner over that. So no breaks for the weary, but
You're
I
here.
feel so much better.
Don't go to China.
Yeah, right. Don't go to China.
More happy bucks. Jerry. Oh,
Over
Jerry.
10 years ago, I started a tradition here, and that was on your birthday, which was mine last Saturday. And that was to donate $1 to the club for every birthday. The first thing you do on your birthday is to thank your parents for making a good decision. And the second is to donate $1 for each year. So here's a check for $85.
Should we sing happy birthday to Jerry?
Yes.
All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jerry. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
More happy bucks. Lots of happy bucks. Okay. So on your table, you will find some peace definitions. But first, last week was the International Assembly for the incoming district governors, who in our district is Kathy Gibson. You've all met her, hopefully. And next Rotary year's theme is Rotary Opens Opportunities. So hopefully you'll get to see that. There's a series of 3 doors. I believe it's blue, yellow, and pink. And very nice, very great new theme. One of the things that the new incoming president of Rotary is asking everyone to do is to really embrace the vision statement that Rotary came out with a while ago, and I'm going to read that to you. And then they're asking that the president in the future either opens or closes the meeting each week, to consider opening or closing the meeting with this new enhanced vision. It is, together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So a really nice personal, global yet personal vision statement. So hopefully you'll all embrace that. So I have some definitions here that I gathered from this club, as well as people I work with and other people. There's, I don't know, probably 30 of them down the line here. I'd like you to each take a couple of minutes. There's a pen, there's a sheet for everybody at the table. I'd like you to go down and circle your 5 favorite definitions. And then I'll put those together and get back to you all. But if you just take a few minutes and read through those, if you want to circle yours or anyone else's, if you can circle the top 5 that really resonate with you the most, I really appreciate that. We'll take 5 minutes.
Favorite one. That's the third one.
Two more minutes. Anyone need more time? I'm pretty much done. Thank you. I will report back next week with the top 5 of the top 5. So thank you, and we'll talk more about peace, as we should always talk about peace. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Howard. Excellent. So a couple quick announcements. Right after this meeting, we have our board meeting. So if you're a board member, please stick around. We'll meet, and we can still meet here, Howard, after.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll meet right here immediately after this meeting, and then next week, as Bob mentioned, don't show up here in the morning. Next Tuesday, show up at Solo, which is a couple blocks away from here, Solo bar, and that's going to be our happy hour starting at 5:30. Yes, Howard.
For any reason anybody does show up and they're hungry, then breakfast is on.
That's right.
The restaurant.
There's a nice breakfast in it for you if you show up next week. And so that's our announcements for this morning. Now we have, oh yes, quick.
This international committee will meet after this.
Oh yes, there's going to be an international committee meeting after this meeting, an hour.
Just a reminder on the schedule here is tomorrow is career day here at this hotel and probably this room or next door or both.
Wow.
And you're invited, even though if you haven't signed up with Seattle Urban Academy, you're invited anyways as a Rotarian. Lunch is complimentary, and we'd love to have you here, and I'm sure the students would love to hear from you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Howard. And now we have the pleasure of inducting our newest member, Christine. So I'd like to have Tom Burley conduct that for us. Thank you very much, Tom.
This is one of my favorite things in Rotary, the induction of a new member, not only for the benefit of the club, but also because those of us who have experienced Rotary for a period of time know it's also for that person's benefit, and most importantly, for the benefit of the local and rural community. So it is with delight that I call to the front to stand here next to me, Christine Doe, if you would. Also our president, Mark Meniger, if you would come up here, please. And then Christine, your sponsor, Vera Cove, if you would come up. And before I start, I just want to say something up here, and I keep picking on you, but you deserve it. Vera is extraordinarily active already. Been with us how long now, Vera? A couple months? Couple, 2, 3 months. has brought in a new member, is going to be on the board, has participated in fundraising activities. And I think in the path she is going to skip being president of the club and skip being district governor, just go right on to be Rotary International. We will look forward to that next year. So thank you for the extraordinary contribution. So, Christine Go, good to have you here. Thank you. You're called before the club to stand with our president, Mark, and with your sponsor, Vera. Christine, it is with distinct pleasure to induct you into the Rotary Club of Emerald City, also known as Emerald City Rotary or ECR. You can call it by any of those. For you, Christine, as a new member, and for us as a club, this is a time for celebration and for reflection. As a new member, you might celebrate joining an international volunteer organization that describes itself thusly. Rotary, quote, Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Rotary has clubs in more than 200 countries and geographical areas, using the energy, commitment, and resources of this massive constituency. Rotary International is a tour de force in the collection, multiplication, leveraging, and application of monetary, material, and human resources for the alleviation of poverty, hunger, disease, and illiteracy. It is neither trite nor inaccurate to claim Rotary as a merchant of hope to every corner of the globe. I've used this same induction speech for the last few people inducted. Wrote this a while back, and I thought, how can I make this one unique? And I was reading it over the weekend. I was down in California with my wife on a break, and I was reading about Sir Edmund Hillary, who in 1953 conquered Everest. He's always given great credit. He's the one who was made Sir Edmund Hillary. I want to give equal time to Tenzing Norgay, who was the Sherpa who did the same. It was two of them who conquered Everest, so let's not forget Tenzing. But Hillary was very, very quotable. And I want to share two quotes. One, just for the levity of the club, because he said this. Here's one quote. It says, nobody climbs mountains for scientific reasons. Science is used to raise money for the expeditions, but you really climb for the hell of it. There's one motivation. But here's the one that I thought appropriate for today. Why do you climb mountains? What is the benefit? Convergence. Convergence. I love that term, convergence. And when I read that, I immediately thought of today and this induction and this club, because is that not the benefit of Rotary, is to provide convergence? As Howard was sharing this morning. Tomorrow, right here in this place, provided by our dear past president, Howard, is going to be an organization that we have committed much to, Seattle Urban Academy. Some of you will be there to share about your vocations, your interests, your passions. You know, bring your network, bring your skills. There is a convergence that will happen here tomorrow. And it's people bringing their best for the purpose of doing good in the community. Rotary is convergence. So back to you, Christine. You and we can joyously celebrate Rotary's steadfast commitment to the eradication of polio. Smallpox was the first human disease eliminated by the efforts of humankind. Polio will be the second. Since 1985, Rotary has contributed more than $1.8 billion and inestimable volunteer hours to immunize more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries, resulting in 99.9% reduction in polio cases worldwide. For a few years now, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria are the last three remaining countries classified as having polio cases. However, in late October 2019, Nigeria celebrated 3 years of being polio-free. Should this continue until late this year, late 2020, not only will Nigeria be declared polio-free, but also the entire continent of Africa. You are part of that organization. This is a monumental achievement. Rotary's efforts far exceed the generous and concentrated efforts of the World Health Organization, U.S. Center for Disease Control, and even the Gates Foundation. It might be the dollar you donate or the inoculation you administer that allows the world to exclaim, we are polio-free. As a new member, you are asked to reflect on how you will contribute to the best efforts of Rotary International and to the best efforts of this club, Emerald City Rotary. What energizes you? What resources, networks, training, or intellect have you to make our community in this world a better place? You make us better. You make us stronger. You participate in the convergence we have referenced. We will be able to accomplish more for your joining us today. This induction is testimony to our club's confidence in you as a leader among leaders. Your fellow members will look to you as a trusted colleague. The mission of the club states that we are dedicated to the future of our community by serving the educational needs of young people. And indeed, we take that very seriously. We are now part of this dedicated effort to bring to fruition this mission. There are 5 avenues of service in Rotary. 1, club service. This is assistance with club meetings and the business of the club. 2, vocational service. Jobs, job skills, training, and the like. That will be seen here in spades tomorrow. Community service, providing benefit to the local community. Also seen here tomorrow. International service, providing benefit to the world community. We have Phil, who is going to have an international service committee meeting tomorrow to decide what it is they're going to prioritize, this club will prioritize. Glad that Phil is leading that effort. It will be well done. And 5th, youth service, Rotaract, Interact, Youth Leadership Awards, and Youth Exchanges. Those are the 5 avenues of service of Rotary. Rotary is not a political organization, but all Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship and the election of good women and men to public office. Rotary is not a charitable organization, yet its activities exemplify charity and the sacrifices that one would expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, yet it is built on those eternal principles that have served as the moral compass for people throughout the ages. Starting today, you will be an individual that stands for Rotary's timeless principles that are expressed in the 4-way test, the object of Rotary, and of course, our motto, service above self. These are not merely slogans, but truths of human interaction and respect for each other. May I have all club members stand, please. Christine Go, you have been approved for membership by the Board of Directors of the Rotary Club of Emerald City. We are delighted to welcome you officially and publicly to this club. We ask now that you publicly confirm your desire to belong to this club by responding to these questions. Number 1, you pledge your personal diligence in providing for the welfare of this club, abiding by its rules, striving to meet its expectations, and participating in its projects. If you are willing to so pledge, respond by saying, I do. Number 2, in concert with your colleagues in this club, will you honor and uphold the name, dignity, and rules of Rotary International? If you do so, respond by saying, I will. Oh, well done. 4 very important words. And to the club members, do we, as members of this club, now welcome Christine Go as a colleague and friend, and do we assure her our friendship, assistance, and support? If so, answer, we do.
We do.
Please remain standing. On behalf of Emerald City Rotary, Rotary International, President Mark Daniel Maloney, District Governor Bill McElroy, Board of Directors of this Rotary Club, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to induct you as a member of the Emerald City Club, the Rotary Club of Emerald City. Christine, congratulations to you. Members, you may be seated. Thank you. And I now give the podium to our. Oh, you want a picture now? Okay, we'll take a picture now before Mark does his job. Okay, if you would. I don't have any.
Yes, you did. You always do.
All right, thank you for that, Carol. Mark, if you would, please.
Thank you, Tom. So, welcome, Christine. Thank you very much, Tom. You always do such a fantastic job with the induction. At this time, I would like to invite Joel up to give an introduction for our speaker this morning.
Happy to do it. So today, I'd like everybody to give a warm welcome to Denise Frisino. But first, let me kind of run through a little bit of her background, and I won't go through this whole thing. It's interesting because Denise and I actually met 4 months ago, maybe?
Right.
My 85-year-old mother helps put on an art and literary show in the Tacoma area each year for the last few years. And they bring in a number of authors. I kind of walked around and met a number of the authors, and Denise kind of stood out. Her novels stood out, and so I asked her if she'd be willing to come and speak to Rotary, and she said she absolutely would. But let me give you a little bit of background. So she is a Seattle native and an award-winning teacher, actress, writer, director, and producer. Whiskey Cove was her first novel, and it centers around Prohibition in the Northwest, which I think we all know was a significant bit of commerce here during Prohibition. In the story, an older woman recants her wild tales of smuggling booze by boat from Canada through the San Juans, and then her assistant, a college student, becomes interested in an unsolved murder during that time period. However, unraveling the decades-old cold case dredges up well-kept secrets. It already sounds pretty compelling. But from a background, she's written a number of books. The other one, well, that one is Orchids of War, and then what's the other book?
Then Storms is coming out this
Okay, that's the sequel. When is that going to be out?
Editing it right now. So
Okay.
ASAP.
All right, very good. Storms from a Clear Sky.
Correct.
So these are, I believe, somewhat fact-based fiction. So that's absolutely fabulous. So please give Denise a nice, warm Emerald City welcome.
Thank you. You know, the Orchids of War, one of the very first men I interviewed was Captain Dick McNeese of the Lake Forest Park Rotary when I was a member of that Rotary out there. So I understand all that you do and I appreciate it so much. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be here amongst you. Also, my dad wrote for the PI when it was right around the corner here. So I spent a lot of time here. My mother was born here 100 years ago. So yes, we're very deep in Seattle history. You heard about this one. This book is 5 years of research. I've spent 7 years interviewing men and women from World War II to get this right, because if I'm going to talk about Japanese spies from Alaska to Mexico, I better get it right, correct? So I did, and I'm still interviewing. I just met with a man who was 97 in the beginning of January. I love meeting with him. If you know of anyone, please direct them my way. All right, and what I do is I do it all myself. I mean, it's all out of my budget. So the purchase of these go towards my film, my ferry rides, whatever it takes, and my research. So I appreciate that. Okay, let's just get moving, Mark, because I've got a lot of slides. Can you hear me without this? Or
we need it for the.
Oh, please use it. Oh, don't spike it though. Okay, let's not. I'm going to stand over here. You know what this is? 1934. 1934 map of Japan. And it was where they were going to expand to, correct? So you see this line? Here's Tokyo. Look. And there's Seattle. There's an arch going right up there to Seattle. So in 1934, they were already planning their expansion to, I can never say this word, totalitarianism, and all about emperor worship. Okay, Mark, I need to go forward. I bet you I can do that. Which one is it? That one. Nope. Not that one. There we go. Oh, fiddlestick. Okay. Oh, I see. Go back, little Sheba, go back. There we go. Watch those arrows. Okay, see this one? This just cracks me up. I've got a lot, so I better hurry here. This one is 1939 on Japanese consular paper. It's to the Los Angeles Water Department. They want to know all of the pipes, where they are, how they're run, who is in charge of them, and what they can do. Of course, we wrote back and said, no, thank you. We're not going to give you that information. But the Japanese, being the meticulous people that they are, worked their way up and found out all of the information that they needed to provide them with that one. All of the working water systems. Oh, come on. Help. There we go. This book.
Oh, thank you. That's more direct. I could do that. Okay, this book, published in 1939. Things that he said in this book finally were admitted to in 1945, 46. Frightening, very frightening about Mexico, what was going on down there, how they were, the Japanese had their submarines that they had bases that they were building in Mandalana Bay, and they were providing oil and everything that was needed for their submarines so that they could be up and down our coast. This book, great book, in Nakano or Nakano, the area in Japan, they decided that they didn't have enough spies. So in 1937, they built a new spy place and by 1939, they had pumped out 2,500 marvelous men who could do anything. They were highly trained, they wore their hair long, they wore regular outfits, and then they had a second one that was another building that was set up just for, you know, your little cameras and all kinds of things. So they were really well prepared. And some of the men who trained at Nakano after the war became the ones who helped with the rebuilding of Japan. There's just another one. We all know Yamamoto, Harvard, 1919 to 1921, attaché in Washington, D.C. for 2 terms in the naval. All right, so they were preparing back. Remember, he said, in January of 1941, when they decided to attack, he said, okay, we'll do it, but I'll give it only 6 months. So anyway, he was quite instrumental with the plan, the organization, and if we had not had magic, the code purple, and we shot him right out of the sky. Literally, right. So if we had Harvard, why not have Stanford? This is your man who was at Stanford. And he hired a man named Thomas Thompson, who was a U.S. Navy yeoman, to provide them with information. It was the first man arrested and tried, first Caucasian man arrested and tried since World War I for espionage. Oh, Kanekichi Yamamoto, no relationship to our Yamamoto, or to the other Yamamoto. This man arrived in Seattle in 1919. The drugs coming in. So he had prostitution, drugs, gambling. He killed so many people they could never get him on any of his crimes. So how did they get him? Tax evasion. But when he left with the FBI and ONI and Navy and everyone following the ship out, making sure he actually made it out of town, they say that he just took buckets and buckets of suitcases filled with money. What he was doing was he was gathering this money and he was sending it back to Japan to this gentleman right here, who was they called him the godfather of crime. He was sending it to him and he was dispersing it and building up the Black Dragon Society, the Yakuza, and all of the things to wage war. Did you know that before the war broke out, there was in Tacoma, that there was they stopped working on the shipyard because they were sending scrap metal back, and all of a sudden the crew said, no, we're not going to be doing this. We're not going to be sending our scrap metal to Japan anymore. It's going to become bullets. So there was a strike on Takeo Yoshikawa. He went by Tadashi Morimura. He arrived in Honolulu, March 27th, 1941. You are looking at the man who gave up Pearl Harbor. He wasn't really trained, but he was proficient. He dressed in work clothes and walked to Tickman Field. He had a driver who would take him and look over Kaneohe. He dove into Pearl Harbor at night to see if there was any nets. And then towards the end, they said, stop, we want maps. So he sent Tokyo maps of where all the ships were. And they wanted to know when they were in port and when they were out of port. So our FBI was not really sharp at this point in time. So here's some of the maps. Okay. This was from a crashed Japanese plane. Again, crashed Japanese plane. This is a rendition of what they felt that they hit. I'm going fast, you guys, because I have less time. So here's how they came in. Captain Dick McNee says he was the first man shot at Kaneohe. He said they were not waves, they were attacks. So I was polite to put this in because he was adamant that they were not. And see how they came in and hit all the small fields first so that they couldn't get anything into the air to protect themselves. Okay, so the consulate, they instantly ran to the consulate in Hawaii. And they kept them, everybody, children, workers, everyone for 10 days. Questioning. Oh no. Morimoto says, I'm just counsel. So then they took them and they put them here, this triangle T. This is like the Roosevelt's. I mean, it's so secluded, nobody knew that this place existed. In fact, the guard outside didn't know who he had inside. But then they put them on, sent them to Philadelphia, and then eventually put them on the Grimshaw, the neutral boat that was exchanging prisoners back and forth. So Muramura, the spy, ended up, of course, telling everything he knew in Japan. And at the end of the war, he hid in the hills because he was afraid he was going to be get in the war trials, and he posed as a monk. And then he came out after a while. And when Japan found out, when he told his story, they boycotted him. At dawn, we slept Pearl Harbor. I just put this in here because when I was reading through this, I found it in my dad's collection, and it was signed to my dad and everything, and it was so cute. My father served in Burma, on the Burma Road, the Alcan Highway, and then the Burma Road, 2nd Lieutenant. So this one is another. This man is the one who actually, Friedman, he's the one who deciphered the Purple Code right before World War II started. Very important. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have won at Midway, and we wouldn't have gotten Yamamoto. Now, I don't know if you can really read these, but here it says, please therefore recognize your intelligence setup and put this program into effect. So they're changing it. They don't want any more propaganda. Now they want them to start collecting information. This is January 30th, 1941. That was from Tokyo to Washington, D.C. And so Tokyo was sending these messages inside the consulate, and the consulate was then spreading the news. So I'm just going to blow through some of these. In the event the U.S. participation in the war, our intelligence said, I read that. We shall cooperate with the German and Italian intelligence. And they also go after the Germans here, the African Americans, and the Jewish, thinking that they will turn away. See, you can't read these things. I apologize. Now, this is, the importance of this one, very organized. Here's what we want. We want to know ship and plane movements. We want to know the general outlooks in Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. So they divided it up into 12. And then next, in February of 1941, they sent these out to San Francisco, to Los Angeles, to New York, to Vancouver, to Seattle. And they said, we only want you to concentrate on 10. You please do 4, 6, 7, and 9 of that list that they had prepared before. Again, here it is. Just the see from Hollywood, the St. Clair. So they're reporting back now. Now they're telling them what they're finding. And that's this David Lohman. He worked for the government, and he was, when the Freedom of Information Act came out, he was going through all of these and collecting them and putting them into a book, and this is magic. There's the men and women who were decrypting and saving us. And I love this one. From Seattle, Saito, to Tokyo, June 23rd, 1941. Here, Port of Bremerton, the battleship Maryland, aircraft tenders, Sandpoint, Boeing. So they're telling everything that was going on here. from Seattle to Tokyo, Seattle to Tokyo. Oh, I love this. Has anyone heard of Station S? Okay, Station S, that's Station S, what's someone's private home now. I like to stand what I write about, so I'm sneaking in. And I'm sneaking and I'm taking this picture through the bushes and I hear the sound of tires on gravel. I'm like, oh, here we go. And I turn around, I put on my little smile and I say, hi, I'm an author and I know that this is Station S. Forgive me for trespassing. Do you mind if I take another picture? And she said, would you like to come inside? I spent 45 minutes going through every single floor, every single room, because this was one of the major decrypting places. They had different areas that they were sending it to. We got, here in Seattle, got one of the 14 messages that were sent out by Tokyo, all of them in different portions, telling when and where they were going to attack. And then it went back to Washington, D.C. Very important. Bainbridge Island, Fort Ward, very important. All right, so this will blow your mind. Let me see if I can get this to work now. Please work. Okay, here we are, of course. Here's Station S, right? This is Rich's Passage. Here's Bremerton. Here's Keyport. Yeah, so what, Denise? You know what that is? Right there. Stood there. Went there. It is the summer home of the Japanese consulate, pre-World War II. I stood there. When that ferry came through here, if I'd had a telescope, I could have told you the size of the diamond ring that people were wearing on the decks. It was amazing. Not only that, then on the ferry, I timed it. Because in the service, you have so much time to identify what's going on. Those of you who've been in the service know this. How about 9 minutes? How about 9 minutes of watching to determine what's going on? All right, now same goes going on down at Long Beach. Long Beach, okay, the Long Beach area here, Terminal Island, remember we took the Japanese for the relocation from Terminal and from Bainbridge first. Well, Terminal is right next to the naval base. In fact, there was many complaints. Why are they still here? What is going on? How am I doing time-wise? Because I got it. All right, and then this is just, LA Times gave me 10 days free to look through their records, and here's what I did. I found June 21st, the Japanese were still coming. A lot of them were leaving for home. They were going back. Something was afoot. Hundreds of them were leaving for home, yet hundreds were coming in through the fishing industry. I forgot to tell you this part. Kenikichi Yamamoto, he was very involved in the fishing fleet in Alaska, and he was bringing spies down that way, some of them unpapered, and he was bringing in architects, and they were building bridges and dams, cutting them into pieces and sending them back to Japan. I got that from his grandson in a paper that his grandson wrote. All right, 80% of, okay, they use the word Japs now, sorry about that, in the United States reside in the Pacific coast, all right, of course we know that one. The danger spot, these anti-aircraft troops, this just blew my mind. Look at this. The night before, this is December 6th. Now, 4,000 anti-artillery men moved to Los Angeles with a brisk, efficient, and more than a little secrecy. December 6th. Yep. They were moving forces, anti-aircraft forces, into Los Angeles. Mexico's presence speeds plans because they were in the harbor. So this is all about, yes, they were mining. The Japanese were known to have plumbed all the way along our coast. And the reason is, okay, so here you have Mexico, and right in here, Magdalena is, where are you? I'll find you in a second because I've got you on the slide. There you are. This is where they built in the Sea of Cortez. And this area right here is where they built submarines, refurbishing, and places like that so that they could just go right back up the coast. And there you have it. Now, the reason I have that in there is because what they were after is Panama. Why? You take out Panama right here and look at what happens. So they were after Panama. maybe men warned about female spies. So once they started getting into the homes of those that they could go into, the alien homes at first, they were finding munitions, cameras, radios, things of that sort. This is all in here. This is frightening. There were 8 Japanese submarines up and down our west coast firing on anything that moved. Right after Pearl Harbor, a aircraft carrier was seen leaving Hawaii. And so they sent these 8 submarines over to try and get it on the way there. 5 minutes. Ooh, this will be the fastest slideshow I've ever done in my life. But anyway, so they were there and they look at 22 missing at sea. Only 5 eventually died from those, and that was before the end of December of 1941. 5 Americans were died. They torpedoed more ships off the coast. This was weird. They moved the documents. I interviewed a woman who was at the Presidio, and they moved the documents from the Presidio to Salt Lake City because they were afraid the Japanese were going to arrive. Vital data. Oh, this is what LA looked like the night they thought it was being raided. But the night before, they had shelled the oil right up above in Galena. So that was LA. 5 people died that night. Okay, this book. Germany had developed, this is in this book, and it comes out later. Germany had developed, fishing craft, strange acid, had developed a compound, a thick compound. When mixed with salt water, would burn through metal. And they were testing it off of our shores. And they came in yellow tubs, but luckily we were on top of that one. And ironically, somehow the whole warehouse blew up after they saw what it would do. So sabotage, there was a lot of sabotage going on. Okay, this is the relocation camps, map of the relocation camps. Oh, that is an excellent book, by the way. Excellent book. All they were saying was move inside, get away from the shores. Okay, you know what this is? These are like, you could pick a camp and you could move in between the camps if you wanted to study drama or something like that. Here's some of the dramas. Here's what they were doing inside the camps. There's their store, their playground, their baseball team. I asked one woman, I loved her. Yeah, I go, oh, only let us dance 5 times. Then we have to get out. Anyway, so here's their getting their milk, their store. These were the bad boys. These are the no-no boys. They're the ones who stood up every morning. And remember, it was all emperor worship and prayed and would not, no, I will not support America. No, I will not join the forces. There's our guys on the baton, just to show you. That is Kaneohe. I tried to find that burial site. Even the commander who was taking me around didn't even know about this picture. I said, look at this, where's this? So, and this is very interesting. This is from Russia to America at the end of the war. And it is the first microchipped spy after World War II. And the Boy Scouts gave it to him. So he had it in his office and he couldn't figure out why they knew everything. Because they were there watching. Oh, that's my dad. But one of the women I was interviewing was telling me that when I came back from Hawaii, and I was there on December 7th on a Sunday, because I wanted to stand above Kaneohe, I wanted to feel everything. And she said, Denise, is this important to you? When I got home, and Densho had gone into the archives that year, 2014, and they pulled out a gentleman who had served in Burma and then come home to Seattle to reunite in the neighborhoods. And it was my father. And so we called Densho, and they had a 4-hour interview of my father that they did not know existed. There were so many miracles along the way with this. See, there it is. So anyway, ever have time to read a good book, Cruise of the Lanakai? Besides my book, of course. The reason I encourage you to go to my webpage, and I've given you all bookmarks, is because I have some of the interviews up of the men and women from World War II that I've been collecting, and I will be putting up more as I get going, as I have time to do it. But right now it's more important that I collect them and have them available than writing my book. So that's why the delay between the 2 books. And there's a 3rd one coming out in the series, because I'm on page 450 and I'm only up to 1943. That's a lot due. Yes, question?
I U.S. government have knowledge of Pearl Harbor's attack prior to the attack? I really want that.
Joe Rothforth's War, or Vice Admiral Thurber. You read any of these books. East Wind Rain, we heard that. It was heard on the radio, and that meant East Wind Rain was Japanese were going to attack America. And that was heard. Yes, I'm a firm believer after all of this, but what do I know? You know, I just glean what I can from all of these. But why were they out horseback riding and couldn't be found? Right? I mean, it was just one was in the theater and couldn't be disturbed. The generals and things, you know, so it was, and it's unfortunate because a lot could have been prevented, especially if the Army and the Navy had been talking, right? All right, any other questions? So I have a few copies if you're interested, and I appreciate being, yes.
Just a comment. I was in the middle of some of this. My family was living in Yangon, Myanmar, and we were outside of the city when the first wave of bombers came in, and they missed our house and demolished the house next to ours. I don't know why they didn't have why they bombed that particular place, but they did. And I've actually watched Japanese bombers coming in to Yangon. And then on New Year's Day, we left Burma as refugees on the last British ship out of Burma to India. So we were refugees in India all of the war. When we came back to this country, we were still refugees.
Amazing, yeah. Yeah, my father was in communication signal corps in Burma. He talked about the frogs, the numerous kinds of frogs in Burma. That was his first letter home to my mother. It's like, okay. Any other, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing, because that must have been a very frightening. How old were you?
5 years old, 7 years old, I guess.
Can you stick around, and well, obviously you'll be sticking around
Yes,
to
sure.
share your
Yeah.
books, and if people have questions, they can certainly ask you
And
questions.
feel free to invite me to book clubs or anything else, because you can tell I like to talk.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. And so at Emerald City Rotary, we're dedicated to the future of our community by serving the educational needs of young people. So we would like to give you like to recognize you for speaking at our club by giving 300 pounds of food to Harvest Against Hunger, so that families can. So this is for you.
Thank you very much. When I was a teacher, when the kids would come in and they hadn't had breakfast and they weren't going to have lunch, you know, I was always buying them food, because you can't teach a mind that is starving, you know. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. All right, I believe we have a raffle.
Remember, no speaker next week because we have happy hour. Sorry, solo. Every week we do a drawing, and when people buy raffle tickets, half the money goes back to the club to support all of the amazing things we do, and half the money goes into a progressively growing pot. Today, the pot is $1,133. Yay. And we have 14 tickets left, which I wish we had 13 tickets left, because then it would be sort of numerically something. Yeah, thank you. If your ticket is drawn, you win 3 things today. Ooh. You win a signed copy of Whiskey Cove, plus a shot glass.
There you go. You gotta have that shot glass.
And a chance to draw one of these 14 cards. So if you could draw one and read the last 3 numbers, that would.
Okay, I have one in my hands, and the last 3 numbers are 335.
I think it's right here.
Oh, I don't have to travel far.
First things first.
Especially if you win the $1,133. Two of hearts, not today.
Thanks to Bill.
Yes.
Anything else? Just remind you, one reason you have a beer and John and Dean because they came to happy hour.
That's right.
So invite your friends who think might be potential.
Yeah, so next Tuesday, please attend the happy hour, bring friends, bring colleagues, bring guests, and let's show them a little bit of Emerald City social. And tomorrow is the career day, so if you can attend that, please let Howard know. And with that, I believe we are at the end of the meeting, and board members, please stick around and we'll have our board meetings. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Do you know where the meeting is next week?
Well, he said it's solo, and I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lower Queen.
Yes.